Howdy Hacksters! It is my favorite time of the week again. We are doing Hackster Café, where we interview awesome people from the hardware world. And today we're talking to Liz of BlitzCityDIY. Hey Liz, what's up?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Now, um, I think it's so cool. I don't watch a ton of other people's YouTubes, but you have this incredibly sophisticated and popular YouTube channel,
Oh,
BlitzCityDIY,
thank
that
you.
we can pull up here. And all these amazing hardware projects, including collaborations, building other people's projects, building your own projects, uh, exploring new technologies and things like that. Also, strange things about 3D printed fried eggs. I'm not sure what's going on there. Actually, can you tell us what's going on with these fried eggs?
Yeah, so that was a little goofy thing that I
Oh,
wanted to experiment with, where I just thought that'd be a fun shape to try to design in Fusion 360.
uh-huh.
And so I just, designed a couple of them, printed them out, and with doing the color swap, I could get the yolk to come out nicely. And then I thought I'd do a
Ah.
fun intro where I'm like placing them on a plate video. But
So
yeah,
you have like a dual extrusion 3D printer, or did you swap out the filament midway?
just swapped out the filament, yeah, at
Ooh.
the yolk.
Wow,
And
you
then I
got a
also,
really clean break.
yeah, and then I did two slots in the bottom, two for magnets, so they're all in my fridge right now.
That's beautiful. So this is very interesting to me. So I sometimes work with different colors of filament, and anytime that I'm changing out the colors, there's always a sort of blending area where you get this like,
Mm.
you know, in interleaving kind of area where it's sort of blurring between the two. But these eggs look so crisp. How did you achieve that?
Thanks. So I did the 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 layer change in the slicer, and then I found like a lot of filament gets like pushed out beforehand, and that can sometimes like go onto your print. So I
Mm-hmm.
always watch really closely and try to like grab it before it starts extruding back on the print.
Ah, does that not disturb like the place that it's starting on the 3D print? Or I guess if it's a new layer, it doesn't really matter so much, maybe.
Yeah, it's when it's like off to the side. It's just I've
Huh.
noticed it will be pushing out just a lot of filament trying to clear it.
Uh-huh.
And so I just try to grab it, and then sometimes they'll also keep pushing like as it's going back to the print, so you almost have to like grab it
Like,
back, which
oh yeah. This is so cool. So, tell us about one of your favorite videos from here. What should someone start with if they're really new to your channel?
um I'd say the Pico Midi fighter, which I have right here.
Oh, this is such a
So
cool project. I've seen it on Instagram.
yeah, so this was a collaboration with Nairez, who I work with a lot, from Adafruit, and he designed up the case. And then basically it's classic MIDI fighter, so each arcade button will send out a MIDI note. But what we added to it is a screen
Mm.
with this five-way switch,
Hmm.
and what that does is a little array comes up on the screen that tells you which MIDI note is assigned to each button, and you can use the switch to change the note on the fly. So like if you wanted this to be sending out an E but it was set to a C, you could adjust it and it would save. So that's handy if you're trying to do like different things live, or you don't want to have to go into the software to change up your array of notes. You can do it right on the fly there.
That's so cool. And then when you go into the software, I assume it's not like rewriting the code, or like when you go into software to change stuff, will that update still be reflected?
So it doesn't save once it's powered down with the
Mm.
current iteration, unfortunately. But that's something we might want to do in the future. And I think someone also kind of updated the code themselves and had it kind of saving to a JSON file rather than like
Ah,
in the code.py file, which is cool to see. That's one reason why I like to share stuff, because people can often go further with it than maybe I have time for at the time. But
I know
yeah,
that
it's not
feeling.
saving like directly in the code, but on while you're playing it, it's basically just changing up your array of MIDI note numbers.
Cool. I love how this is kind of showcasing the Pi Pico in there with your little clear window, and I'm wondering what it was like working with that for the first time. Or unless maybe this wasn't your first time working with it, but yeah, what's it like?
So it was actually like right after the Pico had been released. So we chose this project because of all the I/O on the Pico. So we
Mm.
weren't having to do any expanders or anything. And also, like, it's still such a small size. So it I'd say like CircuitPython support was great to start off with the Pico. So, and all the MIDI things were there too. So we didn't run into too many issues on the software side. So that was good. And yeah, definitely purposeful to kind of be like, it's a Pico project by sticking it out there. So
Cool. And this is one of many, many different music-focused projects that you've made. So I love just scrolling through here. And there was one that I got really excited about a while ago, and it sounds like you've kind of updated it. Can you tell us about your exploration of the fuzz face circuit
oh
and
yeah.
also your I know it's a challenge, but that's why I'm going to ask you about it. Please tell us
Yeah.
your
So
adventures.
I've been kind of getting back to my roots of in music tech stuff because that's actually how I started playing around with Arduino and things.
Ooh.
And so I wanted to make a fuzz pedal for guitar. So for folks that aren't familiar, just like giving your guitar a really distorted tone with a stomp box. So classic
Yes.
fuzz face circuit just has two diodes, a couple capacitors and resistors. So first I started off by breadboarding it, and I ended up making a PCB, which I have here.
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, it did not work. I totally got the circuit wrong in Eagle. And the reason why is I took the breadboarded circuit and I put it into fritzing because I'm a really visual person. So
Mm.
I like, and I changed some values out. So I wanted to kind of have that there. But when I put it into fritzing, I messed up some of the wiring placement. And
Oh,
then
no.
I then went from fritzing to Eagle.
Mm.
So then it was kind of this game of circuit telephone. So this, and I did some troubleshooting and figured out eventually what the issue was. So then I put the circuit into Eagle again. And then what I did was I breadboarded from the schematic that I put into Eagle
Mm.
this. So I confirmed this works. And then I just got the new PCBs in on Friday.
Oh,
So and I kept the size the same and the design the same, and I made it like a fuzzy
it's
TV.
so cute. I love it. We can pull
Uh,
up the graphic you
yeah.
have here.
So and also with the second spin up, I added in a power LED and a spot
Ah,
for a switch because that's what I'm always forgetting when I do
nice.
PCBs. Because it will be powered off a 9 volt. So I'm hoping these will work, and then I'll have a really small fuzz pedal.
Oh, it's so cute. Have you designed an enclosure for it?
Not yet. I'm not totally sure what material I want to use yet. I don't know if I want
Mm.
to do like 3D printed or if I want to try milling out like a pre-made aluminum case. Or...
And that brings us to another project that you've done recently, which is
Mhm.
this collaboration with Sophie Wong. Where did it go?
Yeah,
Here it is. Oh, yes. The
of
button. Can you tell us about this one?
course. Yeah. So this Sophie and I had wanted to kind of work together on a project, and she'd been working on these really awesome aluminum panels, and she was kind of like wondering what to do with it. And so I said to her, like, what if it was like an IoT button of some sort? And so then we went a little further, and what it ended up being is a play pause button for music on your phone.
Mm.
So it's just really simple CircuitPython code that's just using the Apple Media Services. And what it does is you just press the button and it'll play or pause depending if your music's going on your phone. But Sophie did the panel design and the case design too, the 3D printed case. And I just think they look really awesome. I don't
Yeah.
consider my contribution to that to be very large because it was basically example code.
Oh, fair. But I just wanted to show this. I finally found the spot in the video I was looking for. Um, yeah, it's so beautiful looking. And I love the idea that you might make something similar to that for your fuzz face pedal eventually.
Yeah, yeah, because I don't really play out like for shows anymore, so it's more tabletop things. So the enclosure
Mm.
doesn't need to be like super sturdy to be like stomped on.
Right, so it doesn't have to be aluminum and you can kind of play
Right.
around with stuff. What other kinds of materials might you consider?
Um, Wood would be cool too.
Ooh.
I've been trying to do more woodworking recently, so that could be fun to experiment with. Or maybe acrylic too. So I'm kind of I'm open to all possibilities right now.
I love those ideas. So this is sort of, you mentioned the MIDI fighter collaboration and your collaboration with Sophie. I realize in the Sophie one you were mostly doing the code, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But how do you have like any tips for people for doing collaborations? I admit I'm a little bit intimidated because I'm afraid that I'll like fall down on my end and then like, the person will hate me forever. Like, you know,
That's
do,
yeah.
how do you make
I
it
That's how I
work?
felt the first time I did a collab. And that was a little over a year ago. They reached out to me and asked to work on a camera slider with him
Hmm,
doing the code. And at that point, like I wasn't like super confident in my coding abilities. So I was really intimidated. I was like, okay, this I can't say like, oh, I can't get this to work. Like I have to get it to work. Um, but in a way, it was good because it really pushed me. Because you're kind of having to be accountable to that person. So I'd say like taking things in bits and pieces is helpful with that, and also if it's something that you can do and you get along with the person and everything, then I think you should just kind of go for it. And but also have that communication going with the person too. Like if you are running into any issues, like you want to make
yeah.
sure everyone's aware of what's going on, so it's not like coming up on a deadline. You're like, oh, actually, this doesn't work the way we wanted it to.
Oh my gosh, that's so important, and, it's definitely a skill that I feel like I always need to work on. In another, similar sort of vein, so you do YouTube videos, you do Adafruit learning guides, and you've written a book for the ASUS Tinkerboard,
Yes.
and I'm curious, so some of these things, require they're very different media, and you work across all of them. I'm curious, like, what's the difference in process or workflow or what yeah, how does it work?
So for the videos, it's kind of like anything goes because I view that as more of like an artistic kind of thing.
Mm,
And also recently I've been trying to do more, just kind of having fun with it rather than doing like a straight up like tutorial video.
mm.
For the learn guides, I always kind of have to think of it as like putting myself in the person who's building the project's shoes and like what steps am I like not thinking of where it was my project that I should really be pointing out. So like making sure that I'm taking pictures of stuff that maybe I'm not totally thinking of off the top of my head, like making sure I'm showing like where certain wires are going and that certain screws need to be placed in a spot. And then for the book, that was very formal process, and had a lot of reviewers and everything, and also a lot of like very strict deadlines.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the videos are the most freeform. Like no one will notice if I don't make a video. Learn guides like a little bit more formal, where at least one person's going to be reviewing it, making sure it's good, and also like the code and everything. And the book is like super formal because that's also going to live out there forever. And
Yeah.
you can't edit it after. So that was probably the scariest part there. Just making
Yeah.
sure there weren't any mistakes in it, and it was actually like right before it goes into the final thing, you get like your final review copy. And I think it was for like 2 days. I sat and I read my whole book just to make sure there weren't like grammatical errors or like little things. And I did catch a couple things, which is scary. um, but
But only a couple.
just a couple. But yeah, it feels a little bit more like final to push out a book.
Yeah. What's are there challenges around, handling licensing and stuff? Do you have an agent? Do you do it all yourself?
So with the book, that was all handled through a press.
Mm.
So they take care of making sure everything's good with copyright and stuff like that. And yeah, it was,
Right, it
and
says here at
also,
press in the corner there.
and they had reached out to me about doing the book because I had done some videos on the Tinkerboard when it was
Mm.
still fairly new. Um, so I didn't have to worry too much about the legal things or anything like that, which was good
Mm.
because that's not a skill of mine.
What would you do differently if you were to do another book?
Um,
If
uh,
anything, maybe you do it all the same.
um, I'd say timing. I had kind of it was a very short time frame. It was about 6 months, and the way I had kind of laid out the order of things, there were 5 projects I included in the book,
Mhm.
and I kind of left those for the end. I kind of wrote the chapters in order, which maybe wasn't the best idea for just timing.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I I was basically doing 5 projects at once in like a month and a half time period when I probably should have been spreading those out through the time and writing the like shorter chapters like throughout. So
Oh.
that would probably be something I should have done.
Ah, cool.
um,
And, this thing about, taking lots of pictures while you're going for the tutorials, I'm sure that applies equally for the books.
yes, yeah. I'd always say like film and take more photos than you think you need if
Absolutely.
your thing is going to be documented. Because even like if I think I've photographed every step, sometimes then when I'm writing, I'm like, oh, I don't actually have a picture showing this.
Oh my gosh, totally agree. Oh, these are so many cool projects. Okay, so there's a couple more specific ones that I wanna ask about, but first, tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you end up doing this kind of stuff? You've said you, were more into music technology before, and you're kind of diving back into that, but what's the rest of the story?
Yeah, so I kind of came into this when I was in college. Cause I got a little bit freaked out, like halfway through, that I needed to be learning other things to be able to get a job. I was majoring in music technology and
Ooh,
media production.
wow.
So that's when I started kind of looking into Arduino from like a music tech side of things, looking at stuff you could do with Midi and things like that. But I was at a small school and there wasn't like a software or computer department, so there wasn't really anyone I could go to for assistance. So I kind of let it fall by the wayside. And then a couple years out of college, was I was doing media stuff, but I wasn't like actually had a hands-on like DSLR camera or editing much. So I wanted to try to get back into that just so I didn't lose that skill. So that's when I started my YouTube channel, and it was in that I was like, I'm gonna try Arduino again. So that I thought, making videos with it and posting it up, I'd maybe connect with folks that were also doing it because it's a little lonely if you don't know anyone else who's working on
Yeah.
that kind of stuff and you feel like you're totally in the deep end. So that's how I started back up and then just slowly started doing more projects in that vein. And that's where I'm at now. Slowly transitioned to more Circuit Python things, Raspberry Pi stuff, and yeah.
Ooh, yeah. And, there's one thing I wanna ask you about. We've both been working with tinkering with this Oscatone Scout. Let me just show it
Yes.
here. And you've been building one too, and from what I gather, you've had more success with your one. It's a DIY synthesizer
Mhm.
made by Tommy Marshall out of the Bay Area, and, the whole case and everything is 3D printed, and I've had a lot of trouble, like, getting the I love the sound of it, and I love the portamento, but I've had trouble, like, getting the 3D printed parts to fit together so that I can actually use it as a keyboard, and the ones over here are so satisfying, but I was wondering if
Mm.
you have any tips for, like, getting that together, and maybe, like, if you've built your own 3D printed enclosures, if you've picked up any tips from that for, like, getting them to fit together well.
Yeah. I noticed where Tommy's cases are so precise. I find it's a little tight, and there is a support that's in the actual STL. So I found like really making sure that area is clean. Then that lets the keys press a little bit more freely. Because I actually did have an issue with the G key specifically.
Ah,
The same issue you're having. So I just went in there again with a razor and really cleaned it out, made sure there was no spare plastic.
aha.
And I know that Nay, for his case, he used Cura supports as well, and that he had a little bit more success with the case fitting after that.
Mm. And did you print your own one? It looks
I
like
did.
it's a very different colorway. It's so cool. This is
Oh,
like a
yeah, I did
translucent
like
plastic.
transparent filament for the case, so it's kind of like busted.
It's so
Uh,
pretty. It makes
thanks.
me think of, like, Ghostbusters.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've built almost every single Oscatone since I tried to come up with a different colorway for each one, just so they look a little bit unique. So this was the first time I also didn't do just black and white keys for the keyboard.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you've got the Poly 555. I love the look of that one. But tell us about another one of your projects. Where is it? Here we go. Da-da-da-da. Robot Xylophone!
Oh, yes.
I'm so excited about this one. Self-playing instruments are just a total love of mine. And can you tell us a bit about this machine that you built?
Of course, yeah. So this I completed it like at the peak of the pandemic too. So this was
Wow.
definitely like it became a pandemic like mental health thing.
Hmm.
Um and which was great. But so this was actually something that I'd wanted to do in college. But it was just way beyond my skills at the time. Because I played xylophone a bit in school because a band director once told me it was a piano with sticks, which isn't totally wrong. So I had that bell kit actually from when I was a kid,
Huh.
and so I'd always kind of wanted to explore it, but never really had the time. And then with lockdown, I finally kind of had the time to really focus on it and kind of build it up. So they helped a little bit with the aluminum extrusion to kind of suspend the solenoids over it, because that was always the big thing. Like, how are you going to strike the notes?
Yeah.
So this is just it's the bare solenoid. The little plunger actually hits the note, because luckily with a bell kit, like you can have something metallic hit it. Whereas other
Right.
types of mallet instruments you can't necessarily, but that it works out. So it's like getting the right height for it, and then after that, just making sure like all the signals are getting to it properly. I ended up using an itsy bitsy NR52840, so it can do Bluetooth MIDI if
Yeah.
you want. And then I used two multiplexers to be able to get all the solenoids, because there's 30 solenoids
Oh my gosh.
on there, and they're all the 5-volt ones. They're really small, so they're not like drawing a ton of power. And then I'm trying to think.
Is that what
Um,
these big ICs are here on
yeah,
these
yeah. So
three
those are
Adafruit
the
Perma Proto boards that you've chained together?
yeah. So the small ICs are the motor drivers, and then the long ones are the multiplexers. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. I noticed
That's
there's
the
like hmm?
mm. That's the thing, like trying to figure out how to handle the wiring like across the xylophone, but like also reaching each motor. So it was that was probably the biggest struggle. Like the concept is like fairly simple, relatively. Like, you're having to receive MIDI and strike a particular solenoid depending on the note. But then it's like, how are those getting suspended? How are they getting the signal? How is all that happening? So
It seems like the chassis is such a challenging part of this one.
yeah.
Um, so you've got a lot of popular videos. Tell us about a project or video that you really like that you think is kind of overlooked that should get more attention, but people don't usually jump on.
Um,
Oh, we've got Pico Planet! Ah, our friend
oh
Blue
yes,
Chat
that
has
was
the
fun.
Pico Planet. So good.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really go out making videos for the views.
Mm,
So I don't often pay too close attention to how they do, to be honest.
mhm.
um but I'd say, like, actually I really like that the way you just scrolled by the ghost project.
Oh, yeah.
I
So cute.
Those were just like a fun little thing where I
Go away, ads.
designed up this quick ghost model, and then resized it, and then just put a simple blinking LED circuit in there for its eyes. It's just this like cute print.
It's extremely cute.
Yeah.
It's like a little companion ghost.
Hmm.
I'm a huge companion bots person. I love how you show your whole process of designing it. And is this Fusion 360 again, or?
It's Fusion 360. Yeah.
Mm, so cool. And there's another one on here where you were doing art. This one. I haven't had a chance
Oh
to look
yeah.
at this yet, but can you tell us what's going on here?
Yeah. So I got into Eurorack since also during the pandemic, and there's kind of this thing where if you have blank space in your rack, you kind of will put blank panels on there.
Right.
And so they sell them, of course, but I was curious if I could 3D print some. And so I found a model of your rack panel, and then I brought in some art into Inkscape, and made it kind of flat, and then brought it into Fusion 360 as a layer, and then extruded the different parts to get different depths. So like that one there with the lightning bolts and stars, like I made the stars, I think, cut through, and then the lightning bolts slightly lower than the top layer, so I could do color changes. And that's how you can get some like multicolor ones going.
Is that using
So
the same technique that you used for the eggs and stuff?
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Huh. I'll have to try that. I've been so afraid of it, because I don't I'm so, I guess, convinced that I'll get those kind of stripy marks, but it seems like you've managed to eradicate those. And it looks so
Yeah.
crisp in the end. I'm gonna try and skip ahead to the end here. Oh, look at these. They're so nice.
And then the purple one is if folks are fans of Sailor Moon, it's Usagi's bed comforter. So
Oh,
it's
that's
like a
adorable.
Sailor Moon.
You and Winterbloom have these very like there's obviously some similarities with the Eurorack stuff and it being sort of this adorable vibe. Not all of your stuff is like that, but I'm getting some like
Yeah, anytime I can bring some like fun colors and things into the projects, I will.
it's so cool. Oh, I love that black and or that red and blue one too. Obviously, I love that
Yeah.
one. It's so good. And you actually interviewed Winterbloom or had her on your channel at some point, yes?
Did, yeah, that
There
was
you go.
super fun. We had a fun chat. I just asked her a bunch of questions on making her synths and how she uses Circuit Python and things like that. So it was a really good chat.
Is there anything big that you took away from that you'd like to share?
It was just super cool to hear her process, and
Mm.
I find it really inspiring that she's also really self-taught with hardware and coding and everything. And I like that so many folks in the community are. It makes me feel a little bit less like I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I love hearing folks' stories, like how they've learned, and then also her stuff, like she's found a lot of success with her since, and everything's open source. And I think that's super cool.
It's super cool, yeah. So, a big trend right now is people are getting really into macro keyboards and making their own macro keyboards. And you've been doing some stuff both with the Trinky, not Twinkie, the Trinky circuits from Adafruit, as well as building your own sort of complete macro keyboard. And I'm curious, tell us a bit about your experiments with those.
Yeah. So I always really liked the idea of macro keyboards, mainly because I work in education in my day job, and often in supporting folks, like if I can get them to just be able to press a button to be able to do a certain task at classroom,
Yeah.
that's very handy. So I've kind of come from that angle often. So I made one macro keyboard with the Trinky, that's for Zoom. That was just like muting and unmuting your camera or video, which is become kind of the joke in every meeting I feel we've all been in since the.
Yeah. I need like a huge knife switch, honestly.
I hear you.
Like just something that's really visible and like you can absolutely tell which way it is.
Yes, yeah. So with that, it has the neopixels. So I had it so that if it was green, then that meant you were unmuted.
Oh, nice.
Red, you're muted. So that was a nice visual. And then one thing I've always wanted to do is an emoji keyboard, because I
Yes.
really love emojis. So I've been trying for a couple of years. I want to like revisit it, see if it was like an easy way to do it. Because although emojis are Unicode, you can't send them like traditional Unicode things because there's like an extra digit
Oh,
on it.
interesting.
So there's on Windows, there's this emoji keyboard on the touch keyboard, and I was always trying to like figure out if I could access that, but I couldn't. But there's now, if you do, and it's similar on Mac OS, there's a kind of a mirrored equivalent, where you do like Windows period, and then you get this kind of like pop-up emoji menu. So for
Yeah, we have like
my
a
version of the
it's like
emoji keyboard is basically like navigating that, where it opens that, sends key presses to search for the emoji name, and then it'll send the emoji. And
oh.
for the code for that, I wrote it for both Mac OS and Windows. So if folks want to,
Oh,
go.
that's so cool. And what is this based on? Like what's the technology here?
This is Circuit Python. So it's using just the HID library, and it's plugging into a QtPy RP2040. So, and
Oh,
then that 4-key thing is a 1x4 Neo key, which connects over I2C. So it's also like solderless, which is nice.
oh, that's very nice.
Yeah.
It's so cute. It makes me want to like go ahead and do my own keyboard, but huh, not sure what I would do with it. What would you do if you were building another type of keyboard?
Um,
I'm
honestly,
not
I
gonna
don't.
steal your idea,
No,
obviously.
no. It's, I'd honestly love to make a larger emoji keyboard.
Mm,
Or I would love to have one that was like aware of the program you were currently in,
mm,
so that it would switch up what hotkeys were going by default. So kind of similar to folks have done their own like custom Stream Deck kind of things. I'd want it to also just know which program was active. So a little bit of kind of talking to, I'm on Windows, so talking to Windows on that end, to know which program's active, and then have the keys mapped for the hotkeys for that program. That would probably be really wild to do, but
yeah,
it'd be really cool.
awesome. Oh, for me, the programming gets so challenging, and that's really the most intimidating part of it for me. But then when the hardware is so simple, like you're just plugging together like a couple of different modules, it seems like there's so much more brain space available for really digging into the software.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that can also, I find, um, if then you're having issues with the code, but the hardware is so simple, you're kind of like, I just want you to do the thing.
Just do it. Just do the thing.
Yeah. And that's when it's time to take a break.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah, taking a break is so valuable as well.
Yeah.
Um, Tell us about your new dreidel project. So
Oh,
one thing
yeah.
that I love is this black LED acrylic. It's so good. Tell us about
Yes.
this material and also your project, please.
Yes. So I can actually change up my camera view because I
Oh,
do
yes.
have it live here.
Oh, look at it.
So it's kind of in this nice little cube package. And so I thought it'd be cool to like make an LED version of a dreidel. And so I asked Adafruit if they were a learn guide for it, and then Lamar was actually like, "What if you made it so that you drop in chocolate coins to
Ah.
make the dreidel spin, and then it can dump out the coins?" So there's this little slot at the top here. Yeah, and there's a break beam sensor. So when
Mm.
I drop in a coin, spins and it fell out of the cup. But if you land on Gimmel, it'll dump out the motor. But I think I might still have the motor hooked up so that if I press this button, it'll dump it out.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was
it's
a
so
little thing I
cute.
added in for photos, so I wouldn't have to like worry about making sure I won
Um,
to show it.
oh, yeah, that's a whole other thing, like, when you're doing tutorials and you need some code that'll just, like, hold the robot still or, like, be in this position so I can take the photo.
Yeah, you get like your like live version of the code they're showing people, and then like, okay, this one has a bunch of different switches and everything,
Mm.
so that I can get into different modes.
Yeah, pro tip.
Yeah.
Another project you have there on the table, is that your CO2 logger?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Ooh.
So although I'm into technology, I don't really like technology in that I don't like stuff to be connected to the cloud
Oh,
or
yeah.
that. And I don't like IoT things really. So this logs CO2 data, but it's disconnected, so it doesn't need an internet connection. It's actually logging to an SD card,
Hmm.
and so that means like you can bring it anywhere, like public transit or in a public space, and kind of see what the levels were while you were out, and then just look at it afterwards. And so I ride public transit every day, and I work in a fairly public area, so I was just curious, and so that's kind of where that project came from. And I like the idea too of like, a bunch of the environmental sensor projects, like they often have an internet connected component, and so as a result, like I don't necessarily look into them too much.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
the idea of then making it like disconnected, like I think that kind of opens up a lot, because also with the traditional thing, you can't look at something like how is it on the train, for things,
Mm.
or how's the temperature in this particular space. So it's
Yeah, and
that
you
was
can
that
do the
was fun to
Bluetooth
work
stuff, but
on.
then it's, like, another wireless thing to troubleshoot and, like even if you're not going up to the cloud where you have to worry about who's got your data and things like that.
Yeah, and also just getting the network access to, and
Yeah.
also knowing that if you're not connected to the network, then there's also you aren't logging the data anywhere else. So this is also, I think, a
And
good.
slower power.
Exactly. Yeah.
So many advantages. What a cool project.
Thank you. It's a little small case.
Ah, you also share a lot of cool other people's PCBs. So two people that I also admire, Twinkle Twinkie, who did this little
Yes.
SAO with the Vax cat, and a
Mhm.
Boldport one as well. Boldport is
Yes.
so cool. Are there any other PCB artists that you admire that you or like another favorite PCB that you have?
I'd say Alpine Glow. They're doing
Oh
really
yeah.
cool stuff. Yeah. And Carrie has those weekly solder sessions too on Wednesday nights. Where she's had folks on, and then she also does like live PCB design too, which is really cool.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah. And then Timon and Dave Darko also do really cool PCBs.
Yeah. I'm trying to
So
pull up
many cool
Alpenglow here
people.
still.
They had the I voted PCB badge during last year's election, which I soldered up and was wearing on election day.
Oh, perfect. Is there anything you'd like to throw in there before we wrap up? I'm sure there's so much stuff that I'm just not aware of that you do that's yeah, what would you throw in there?
In the future, I'm hoping to maybe look into doing some more Eurorack based projects,
Mm.
and definitely using a lot of Winter Bloom's Thea Flowers documentation for that. She has just such great documentation on like how to approach the circuit design with modules and everything like that. So that's probably the thing I'm exploring the most right now as far as like new stuff.
She really has an amazing blog with
She
these
does.
like visual draggy interfaces where you can like interactively play with how the different synthesizer circuits work. We had her on to chat at one point and oh, we have to find one of these. Oh, here we go. All of these are like simulations. Look at this.
I know,
Like,
it's
like
so
change
cool.
it around. Amazing. Well, I think your work is just tops. You have
Oh,
this
thanks.
amazing aesthetic sensibility. I can't wait to see what you're doing next. Everyone, you can follow Liz at Instagram and Twitter at BlitzCityDIY, and same thing on YouTube. You should go subscribe. Oh, well, our company account wasn't subscribed yet. uh, I can't wait to see what you're going to get up to next. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Liz.
Have a good one.